Hello, my friend. It's me, Allie, and welcome back to the Cosmic Blessons podcast. And today I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the jobs that I've had in my past and how they have kind of helped shape the person that I am today. And I tried to record an episode of this, and I was just so scattered and all over the place. So I'm re-recording this and hopefully getting it into some kind of order. So I started working when I turned 16. I was still in high school, and I was very eager to have freedom. I really wanted to have my own money. I wanted to have my own car. I wanted to do all my things. And so that's why I wanted to get a job as soon as possible. So I did. I started working at Walgreens. That was my first job. And while I was there, I worked pretty much like the weekends while I was in school. And I saved up money so that I could buy my first car, which I got when I was 18. And I learned a lot from that. You know, being in customer service, you really learn how to deal with people. And, you know, I mean, times are different back then. But anyways, yeah, so I learned a lot about people and how to talk to people and how to not take things personally, I guess. Yeah, so I continued working there until I was in college, and then I moved downtown for school. So I transferred to another Walgreens that was closer to where I was living since I'd moved away. And I worked there until I decided to join the Navy Reserves. So while I was in college, I don't know. Part of the reason why I decided to do this also was I went through a breakup, and I was just like looking for, I don't know, something. I wanted something bigger. I wanted to be a part of something bigger. I also wanted, other ways to help pay for college. And that sounded like a good idea at the time. I was also in Navy JROTC in high school, so that kind of like made me think, okay, the military's fine. I could totally do that. So I joined. I did the whole thing at boot camp and A school, and I do have another episode where I will talk about the experience that I had while I was in A school that absolutely I only recently realized played such a big part in how I moved in the world and how I perceive things, and how I had a big wound during that time. So so in the reserves, you only drill. So after boot camp and A school, I got to come back home, and then I would go to drill on weekends. So like 1 weekend a month. And then we also did quarterly trainings in San Diego. By the way, I was a CB, which is the construction force of the Navy. And so I'd never been on a ship. So I was an equipment operator. I operated heavy machinery, and so we were attached to a unit in San Diego. And so quarterly we would go out there and do drill. And let me tell y'all, like when I was in the military, I got so many marriage proposals, and anyways, I come back home. I come back to Houston, where I was living, and where I grew up, I should say. And so I start working I move back downtown to go to school, and I start working at the bookstore inside the school. So I'm still doing the reserves, and then I'm working at the bookstore. I'm going to school. And around this time, I also found roller derby, which is not a job, but it is a commitment for sure. So I wasn't playing competitively at this time. I was just doing recreational leagues, so that was only like once a week. So it wasn't too serious. But I absolutely fell in love with the sport, and yeah, and then I went on to skate for over 10 years. But anyways, so after I graduate from college, my first job, I took the first job that I could get, and it was a place where we were working with seismic data, and we had all of these maps. I'm like, how do I even describe it? They're not like the kind of maps that they're like lines that go up and down. That's not a very good description. Anyways, it's just the seismic data, and they were all of these maps that were filed away, and they were like years and years old, and we had to scan them in and digitize them was basically what the job was. And it was an office job, and I did not enjoy it. And I remember at one point my boss was like, I think she said, like, you're making the lines too clean. And I'm just like, what the fuck is the point of this job? Oh, hi, doggy. What are you doing here? There's a dog that just ran on my porch. Anyways, so yeah, that job was a bummer. Although I did meet my friend Christine, and we're still friends on Instagram. And she is a photographer, and she's like, trying to do her thing too, taking photos, looking so awesome, and like super proud of her. We actually used to, and Natalie as well, we would, during our lunch breaks, we would go and walk the stairs. Like there is like a stairwell, and we would climb those stairs after lunch. And I have to say that is definitely like a kind of practice that I still do to this day. After I eat my lunch, I go for a walk, and I feel like that makes a huge difference in my energy level. And yeah, so shout out to Christine. Hey girl. So after that job, I found another job. So I was living downtown at this time, and I find another job in the area, and it's a small business, and it, basically is a photo and memorabilia organizing. So, it was, like I said, a small company. We were working out of like a little duplex situation, and people would bring their photos, their scrapbooks, their, I don't know, things that needed to be photographed, and we would digitize them. We would make photo books, all sorts of stuff like that. I actually really loved this job, especially in the beginning. But it slowly, it got bigger and bigger, and then that ended up becoming something where we ended up moving into an office, and then like that kind of changed everything. Things got more like official, professional, I guess. It went from being a more casual job to a more professional setting, and I, was starting to have those feelings again where I'm just like, man, what am I doing here? I am not enjoying this. And at this time, I was playing derby competitively, and so that was kind of like helping me out, saving me for sure. Oh, doggy, what are you doing in here? Okay, hold on. Okay, sorry, I had to let that dog out. Yeah, so towards the ends of it, I was feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm not enjoying being in an office environment, and I was crying a lot, and I was just not having a good time. I was also doing drill, doing that. So, and I realize now it was like a work-life balance issue that I was having. I was also taking medications because I had severe anxiety and depression and all the things, and was not really dealing with things in the best way. But you know what? I have compassion for that version of myself, and she was doing the best that she could with what she had. So yeah, while I was working there towards the end, I picked up a part-time job at an art studio. So it was the first time that I started working with kids, and I had a blast, actually. I really enjoyed it. People would like drop off their kids and they'd have access to the studio, and there were different little projects at like different tables that they could do. And yeah, I really enjoyed that. And that kind of led me into teaching. So anyways, I get fired from my job of doing the photo organizing and everything. And I realized that this also created a really big wound that has created these patterns in my life where I just have decided to keep myself small. I will talk about that in another episode. That I'll go into that because this was around my Saturn return. Oh my gosh, not only did I get fired from my job, but then I also like ended up going through a divorce, and yeah, it was a whole thing, but I'll get into that another time. So while I got fired from that job, and so I did have a little bit of that teaching experience, I was like, okay, so I know that I think I want to somehow get into teaching art specifically. So I'm an artist, and I have been since I was young. So I just really liked the combination of working with kids and making the art. And so I started working as an after-school art teacher. So I would go to different schools. There was a couple different schools that I would go to, and I would have a handful of students, and we would have an art class. And I did that for a little while. And then I was going through the divorce, and actually that was like the start of when things started going bad. And then that summer I worked as a summer camp counselor with actually one of my old coworkers from the job that I actually got fired from, Jamie. Love her. She's also an artist. We ended up working as camp counselors, summer camp counselors at like this, I don't know, some kind of religious affiliated camp counselor thing. And we taught art. So it was great, actually. Like, we went to the water park every Friday. We had snow cones, it was like, aside from like the whole stress of all of the other things that I was dealing with, like, it was actually a pretty good time. So after that, I start working at a paint and sip studio. I was managing one of those studios. I was teaching classes. We had a little storefront too, so I did that. I would schedule paint parties and things of that sort, and I loved that job too, actually. Yeah, it was like, I would love to open up my own art studio someday and do stuff like that, but I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's as popular now. But anyways, so this was definitely when I was going through the divorce, and yeah, that was emotionally, I was not good. And so I get a job. I start subbing. So at this point, I'm starting to work towards my teaching certification. And so I get a job substitute teaching. And actually, Gabby was on maternity leave, and I worked with her at the place I got fired, which, crazy. They both also got let go from that job. And anyway, I will talk more about that in the other episode, because that was like not cool how everything went down. But anyways, so I start subbing for her, and I end up getting certified, and I end up getting a spot in my own classroom. So I start teaching art, and that was in like 2017. And I'm still playing derby. Did I retire at this point? No, not yet. Okay. Yeah, I'm playing derby, and I'm teaching art, and I feel like, okay, cool, I'm starting to get my life back together. And later that year, I go on a trip with, this is not job related, I go on a trip with my friend, my best friend Nicole, and we go to Santa Fe. And this is the time that I actually meet my husband. So anyways, sorry, getting distracted. So at the end of 2017, I meet I meet Kevin at that time. And so I continue teaching, and then summer of 2018 comes around, and I decide to leave and move to El Paso to be with Kevin. I'll share that story about what happened and how we met and all that stuff another time. So I moved to El Paso, and I loved it there. To be like, I loved the town. I loved the town. It's a city. I loved just the weather. There's the food was so good, and the people were so cool. And so I end up joining El Paso Roller Derby, and that's, again, not a job, but a huge commitment. I actually broke my ankle that summer too, and while my ankle is broken, I am looking for work, and I end up getting a job as a telemarketer. So, and we would sell, it was Cox cable is what we were selling. And so I'd trying to sell people freaking internet plans and cable TV and sometimes phone bundles and just stuff like that. Oh my God, it was the worst. Like, I cried so much. People are so mean. And oh my God, it was not cool. But I end up getting a call for a teaching position around November of that year. So I end up leaving the telemarketing, thank God, and I go into my own classroom, and I'm teaching, and it's wonderful, and I'm so grateful, and I just loved my students so much. And so I'm teaching, and I'm also playing derby, and things get a little, my husband was going through a custody battle with his ex for his youngest, for Gabriel. And just things went down a certain way that it was just that's another wound that I have held on for way too long. And anyways, long story short, he ended up having to move. Him and Gabriel move in 2019, and I stay there because I'm doing derby and I'm teaching. So I lived there in El Paso for another year and a half by myself before I moved. So I was teaching until 2020. The pandemic happened, that whole thing. And we were doing the online classes. I was struggling, as I know so many other people were. But I mean, I was really missing my husband. I was really missing my person. I was missing derby because derby had to shut down too. And I was like, I just can't do it anymore. And so I decided to move to Columbia, South Carolina, because that's where my husband was. So I eventually do that in 2020, and we live on base. And while I'm there, I get a job doing flower preservation, and I was preserving flowers as well as making jewelry with polymer clay. So we would take we'd preserve the flowers, and we'd take the petals and we'd put them into the clay, and we'd make beads, and we'd make them look like stones and set them into different types of jewelry. And it was pretty cool. I actually really like that. I learned how to play with resin and stuff like that. So I loved that I had flowers to look at. I was surrounded by pretty things. So that I did that. And then I was also trying to make money selling my art. I was really doing a lot of this online on Facebook, and I had a little bit of success, but it was just not sustainable for me. And so I burnt out so bad, and I just I didn't even want to create anything. It was not good. So fast forward to 2023, we move back to Texas, and then I get a job at the place that I work for now, but I was at the warehouse. So we make pens, and I used to like put together the pens like in the space, and so grateful. This is like when stuff really changed for me. I mean, I ended up joining this program where I wrote things. Again, sorry, that doesn't have to do with work. But while I'm making the pens, I'm rewriting my reality, knowing that I'm meant for so much more and bigger things. And yeah, and so, you know, I put in my notice at my work that I couldn't do it anymore, just because, you know, the environment just wasn't great for me. I was doing fine, but I wasn't really growing in the ways that I wanted to. And so when I put in my notice, I just didn't have any other plan, but I just knew I couldn't stay. And not too long afterwards, my boss came up to me and was like, hey, how would you feel about managing the social media account? And boom, that's where I am now. So, so grateful that my boss saw the creativity in me and offered that position to me. You know, I had no idea. And so I've learned so much from her. I'm so grateful for her. Like, you know, I've had a lot of, it's interesting because I've worked for a few different small businesses and a few different, like, I've worked with different women as bosses, and I've learned from all of them, you know, in one way or another. And I'm just so grateful to be where I am right now. So that's what I do now. And I'm also working on my own thing. So working on creating this podcast. I have a YouTube channel. I make art. And so I'm working on somehow combining all of those things together and sharing my life with the world in hopes that I can inspire somebody else to do something a little bit bigger than you know, what they have now. And I want to encourage people to dream big. I want people to feel like they can live a life where they are fully expressed, where they are able to find joy in the little things, to make art, to find purpose, just so many things. Like, our life is so beautiful and amazing and wonderful and full of so many things if we want it to be. Because it took me I had to do, I'm using work, like quote unquote work. There was some work that I had to do. I had to take responsibility for my thoughts, my actions, my behaviors. And looking back at all of these jobs that I've worked in the past and seeing what lessons that those things have taught me, you know, not just in the skills that I have now, but also all of those hard things that I had to work through. And so I'm coming into this space where I see all of those things, and I look back at every version of myself, and I just absolutely send so much love and compassion to her, because she was just really doing the best that she could with what she had. And yeah, and I'm doing it now too. You know, I don't have all the answers, but I am on the path and I'm figuring it out. So yeah, that's where I'm going to stop for today. Thank y'all so much for listening, and I'll talk to y'all in the next one. Bye.